All right, thank you. I'll probably move around. I won't stay still too much. So it's kind of amazing how things kind of fall together. I picked this topic focused on end users because we are all people and we screw things up often, and all our other speakers prove that fact today. So 88% of privacy breaches were human generated. So kind of part of my reason for talking about end users. We all go through digital transformation projects in one way or another, whether it's just a network upgrade or implementation of an EMR or something else. We're all doing those kinds of things. So I want to share some of my lessons learned and some of the things we're doing. And lastly, over this being my fourth year, I've actually never really talked about Nova Networks that much. I've always talked about, be it HIMSS or other organizations or other topics. So talk a little bit about my own organization today. So let's jump into this. If I can click the right button. So far, no good. Click, there we go. Hey, so Nova Networks, we're an IT company. We're actually probably one of the few, if not the only, locally owned IT company left in Ottawa. Most of the IT companies have been bought up by big US conglomerates or venture capital organizations. So we have a single owner. We're about 350 employees. We run anywhere between $65 and $85 million of revenue a year, but we offer services across Canada. Within my department, we are a dedicated healthcare group. So my background being a CIO, I have another retired CIO on my team. All my technicians have all worked in hospitals. My project managers have worked in hospitals. So we're very, very focused. We're one of the few IT organizations that really have a division dedicated to health. So we understand this quite well. Our overall philosophy is we meet you where you're at, right? There's a lot of IT companies that say, well, we have this box for you, and that's the only box we have, right? It's the kind of the Model T approach that you can get any Model T Ford as long as it's black, right? Well, we're the exact opposite of that. It kind of drives me crazy. My boss and I argue about it all the time. He's happy having 27 different, procedures for everything that you could imagine, because in his mind, he says, that's what my customer needed. That's what that customer needed at that time. And I'm like, yeah, but we need to be efficient and we need to do all these other things. But we just continue to take that approach on what is it you need, and I'll give a perfect example. Right now we have a small hospital that we're supporting west of Ottawa. They're in the middle of their electronic health record implementation, and their IT manager left. Got another job in Kingston and took off. So right now I'm the acting IT manager of the Perth and Smith Falls District Hospital, right? Because that's what they needed. So we stepped in and we've surrounded them with a team of people to get things done. So, we have all the different components of IT, and we bring that to the table. Managed services is probably the biggest thing that we do. Most IT organizations, and why I went from, very large organizations like SickKids to doing what I'm doing at Nova Networks today, is the vast majority of hospitals and health organizations are small, underfunded, under-resourced, and all have significant tasks and jobs they need to do. So I wanted to be very dedicated to that kind of task, right? When I worked at SickKids, I had an $83 million capital budget. I had 260 some odd IT people. I offered IT services out to the private sector, because we had so much of it. In this reality, in this world, we don't have that option, right? You're often the Perth Smith Falls example. That's a 5-person IT shop for 2 full campuses over 100 beds. Managed services become one of those things from a support perspective, and the trend that I see more and more here that links to the cybersecurity conversation we've been having. Is patching as a service, right? Lots of organizations trying to keep up with that regular routine of keeping all their Microsoft patches and all their security patches and all that kind of stuff still moving. They don't have the time or the resources or capabilities, and so they'll do we do a service at about $5 a device, and we keep everything running for you, right? People are learning that these hybrid work systems of both, in-house staff, consultants, remote, and on-site is the kind of new model. This is all centered on a network operations center that runs 7/24. Everything you can expect would be there is there. Cybersecurity is another big part of what we do, another topic that we've had here. We ourselves have learned that you can't do it on your own. So we've partnered with other companies, in particular a company called ESET. We really like what they do. We also like the fact they're European. Europeans tend not to be as driven by the stock exchange, more by customer satisfaction than dollars. So just a cultural thing that works really well for us. But they're a phenomenal partner. And there's no doubt that we've all heard the massive amount of attacks in the healthcare industry. We are not immune. All the bad guys and girls are still all bad guys and girls. They don't care who they attack and why they attack. Actually, I thought it was really funny when SickKids got breached. The provider, I think you guys know this, there are many legitimate businesses that create malicious code, right? And they sell that code, right? You can Google it, top 5, 10, malicious code creators. They're legitimate businesses. They're publicly known. Everyone knows who the CEO is. Everyone, people apply for jobs, right? It's not, kids with hoods on in the basement, right? These are, in big office towers, and that's their job, to create malicious code. They sell that code, right, to different actors, and those actors go and extract money, right? In the case for SickKids, one of the rules of the company that created the malicious code is you can't affect women or children, right? So you can use our code to rob anyone else, but it can't be women or children. So when they found out that their code was used to breach SickKids, the parent company that sold it outed the reseller, outed the company that attacked them, right? Removed their license, right? And then gave the money back to the children's hospital. So this kind of concept of honor amongst thieves, I thought was kind of funny, even in the cyber world. So, there's tons of cyber attacks out there, happen every day, thousands a day. I remember in my first year, I put the big FireEye active cyber attack model up on screen, right? And you can just see it getting bombarded everywhere, all over the place. So we work with this company called ESET. We offer, everything you can imagine under the sun. And I really liked a lot of the conversations around training and maintaining training. We run a full gamified training cycle that kind of runs quarterly or twice a year, whatever the client wants, so that it engages people, all kinds of end users, from nurses and clinicians, providers, to IT, to administration. They all have fun doing this and learn at the same time. So really comprehensive, full suite of cybersecurity tools that are available with us and in partnership with ESET. The other thing we really like about this organization is everything they deliver in Canada is all done with Canadian resources. So even their cybersecurity center is actually in Montreal, all Canadian-based. Nothing goes out of the country. Service desk, again, something that I'm finding is becoming more and more popular to organizations. This is that traditional help desk, as we heard with the nurses group. What we really try to do is put that in context knowledge within our services. So we offer these services. Ville de Québec is one of our clients, and we have a help desk that does all their internal IT services for them, all outsourced, because it's less expensive for them to do it that way than to try to maintain resources in-house. That becomes our problem. City of Ottawa, anything after hours we do. So we do a lot of spot work. Here in Alberta, we the Ministry of Health use this service. Life Labs use this service. So again, here's these complementary pieces of the puzzle that can help you and your organization manage the workloads. A little bit more on service desk, end user support. This is somewhere where we're seeing more and more traction. And when you're trying to take risk out of big digital transformation projects, having resources on hand and available is a really big part of it, right? There's nothing worse than driving forward, or you have this big project and you can't get to the goal line because you don't have enough people in the workforce to get the job done, right? So this is kind of on-demand services. And as you could well imagine, this is all based on an ITIL foundation, right? So we use industry standards to kind of ground all this work to make sure that there's good, robust, mature processes. So when we do offer services, there's logic to everything that we do, even though we kind of meet you where you are. Lifecycle management. This is one that, again, in terms of de-risking your technology estate, this is one that we're getting more and more and more traction on, where it's kind of the cell phone model, right, for just about anything, right? So, you don't want to, you guys had a great presentation, right? Those nursing stations where you have inventory of all kinds of things all over the place in random places. How do you normalize that, and how do you ensure that there's always a flow of modernization for all that equipment? So this kind of service is what we use to do that. So from the idea of what you need, through the process of procurement, through the process of updating, asset management, and all those kinds of things, more and more people are going that way, and it's cheaper at, say, $35 a month for a device than it is to go and find the capital dollars to go out and buy, maybe you need 500, 250, whatever amount of equipment you need. But this is a great way to de-risk projects. The other thing that is really interesting in this is moving dollars from the traditional capital dollars that we see in healthcare so often to operational dollars, right? We get often in healthcare, we get lots of capital dollars to go do a project, right? Here's $100 to go do whatever. And then the year after you've done the project, you go, okay, well now it costs me $25 to maintain it. And they go, we don't have budget for that, right? So by moving into this kind of life cycle management idea, or what industry is calling everything as a service or device as a service, right? You start to move that money within your organization into operational dollars, which gives you a sustainable stream of revenue to support your organization going forward. So again, just another kind of trick or thing that I'm seeing and have learned, some lessons I've learned myself, is if you can move those dollars over to operational dollars, the idea to maintain your fleet and maintain your estate becomes a lot more simple, because you're not having that debate anymore. And when we see as a small company the big guys like the Lenovos of the world introducing this kind of stuff, we know we're kind of on the right path. A few other points to the LCM process, but it really is a soup to nuts. We'll help you figure out what it is you need. We'll help you do procurement. We'll use our own buyers to do all that kind of stuff. We can publish it. We worked with the team from Quebec this past year, and we published it in an e-commerce portal so that they can just order, and they have their standards all built in, and it's nice and simple. A little off topic, but there is a retail element to healthcare. So we help, we do work with Walmart, Burger King, I think Tim Hortons on all their POS and their digital displays and all that kind of stuff. So we're well designed to manage that kind of stuff. We work with a lot of the unions as well, coast to coast, with their equipment. And ultimately, when you think of how do I manage risk, right? It's the 4 pieces on the bottom that are really those key ones on how do I make things predictable, right? If things are less risky, if they're predictable, if they're stable, compliant, and there's continuity, right? That sustainability right? One of the things we often suffer in healthcare is, I got money, I don't have money. I have money, I don't have money. What am I going to do? Like, you know, that's from an IT perspective, that's horrible, right? It's really tough to really manage things when, you know, patients are coming. They don't care what revenue cycle or what budget cycle you're in. So I'm going to change gears a little bit. That's kind of traditional stuff. And just a quick question before we keep going. Stand up if you have used ChatGPT or some kind of AI. Just get everyone to stand because we all ate lasagna. Stand up if you've used ChatGPT or some sort of AI product. Right. So sit down if your organization has a policy that tells you how to support that and how to do that. Yeah. It's like, we do, I'm telling you. So again, you know, so you could all sit down now, but just wanted to get people moving as even my lasagna is still just sitting there. It's like, oh, nap time. So moving into this new kind of dynamic world, right? AI to me is not all that different. In healthcare, for our nursing colleagues, you've used decision support for you've used aids your entire career, right? AI is just moving these things forward and putting them a little bit on steroids. What Tehima is it's a really interesting idea, and we're just starting to get to know this company better, and I think it really has an application for this group. So who uses VMware or Citrix? Right? How many people have renewed your VMware or Citrix contracts? How many have found that the percentage increase is over 100? Right? Yeah. My last one, just for even this small hospital in Citrix, went from $2,500 to $7,500 just on renewal for the exact same thing, right? I talked to another hospital in Toronto area. It was a 300% increase on their VMware contract. No one's ever budgeted for that kind of stuff. So we started a year ago kind of seeing this trend coming, trying to find a couple of companies that could give alternatives to these, you know, big, massive players that are, in my mind, being a little bit of a bully in the marketplace. So Tehima is kind of, I'll say, Citrix on steroids with a little bit of VMware for remote access. And what it does is create, I'll call it these private rooms, right? So if I used a table analogy, so if this table was a room, right, you would all have a seat at the table, but none of the information, none of the data, none of the stuff could ever leave the table, right? So if you think of that from setting up clinics, from setting up remote offices, all that kind of stuff, as long as you have connectivity and basic infrastructure, you can set things up within an hour, right? I'm sure we've all had the moment where, you know, HR calls or one of the departments calls and say, oh yeah, we hired Johnny, they start tomorrow. And you're like, well, I don't have a laptop for Johnny or a desk, like, I don't have anything, right? So in this kind of model, you can go, oh great, what's Johnny's family name, right? Set them up, virtual desktop, as long as they have a keyboard somewhere, they're good to go, right? The other part here is this brings all that security stuff all together at once, right? So they're actually in the process of working this within, Cherish mentioned it, E5 licenses, right? So that you can have a virtual desktop and a virtual room all for one thing. So if I think of the transaction between the communities and your funder, right? In this world that we're now in, data is your revenue stream, right? In healthcare at all levels, data drives revenue, right? If you're a primary care doc, it's transactional. If you're a community, you provide data to your funder, and based on that data, they give you money. If I think of OCAP principles, which were appropriately raised, right? There's always this really weird dynamic and tension between how much information can I share, what should I make it look like, how do I give them access. This type of solution creates a room, right? Where I can build virtual desktops where we can work. Say I'll put myself in a community space. I can work as my community, get all my data organized, get everything set up. And then when I want to make something available to third parties, be it a funder, be it other communities, be it a research group, right? I can invite them in, I can give them a virtual desktop, and I can let them work within that room, knowing that never, ever, ever is a shred of that information going to leave, right? So if you think of all the scary things like, was it Squidward or Bright Squid we're talking about, and right, all these things that people are trying to scare you on data breaches and all that kind of stuff. These things all happen. I was a privacy officer for 5 years. On average, I fired 6 people a year, right? Just because they were dumb, right? So all these things do happen, right? But when you can use technology to protect all those processes and all that human piece, that's a great solution. So this is something we're trialing right now. We're doing a couple of proof of concepts, and if anyone else is interested, we'd love to have you. Provisioning is super easy. It works. It's actually in the AWS cloud today. It's in the process of being in Azure as part of the E5 license. Quick provisioning, really simple, easy way to build security for exchange of information. So the next part of the equation and the problem is data, right? So we're doing all this security stuff and all this privacy training and all this kind of stuff to protect data, right? The problem is typically we don't know much about our data, right? As IT professionals, we know we have all these SQL databases and all these other things and terabytes of this and terabytes of that, but we don't necessarily know all that data. So Snowflake is a really interesting organization, again, that just starting to look into, but they have probably the most unique position right now in data management, data governance, and data warehousing. They do a really neat thing, I think it's the next slide, where they split out the concepts of data storage and compute, right? So if you think of trying to use our big hyperscalers, which, doing data analytics and data management, hyperscalers are great for that stuff. Today it gets expensive because I always got to bring those two things together. This product actually pulls them apart, right? So you can literally manage tens of terabytes of data for like $10, $15, $20 a month, right? Because now I've split those two things apart. So really neat product. And then they have this really nice layer around it, what they call their Snow Grid, which is the ability to create I'll call it a trading place, right? Where can I share and trade data with my partners safely? So I see these two things, this Tehima thing and Snowflake working in perfect harmony, where I can understand and use my data, classify my data, manage my data, understand the governance about it. One of our speakers were talking about that governance piece, right? And how difficult it is to get all that. This tool starts to automate that in a really interesting way, so that you now have classifications within data on this is personal health information, this is administrative information, this is something else, right? So now as we start to use technology to our benefit versus just something to have, right? We have ways to govern and manage our data, and we have ways to share it totally safe and securely, right? And we're starting to take the human element out of that process. Talked a little bit about data collaboration, so creating that e-commerce platform. So I can give an example. Here in Alberta, I was working for Hitachi at the time. Alberta wanted to do a big data warehouse project for all the health data in the province, but also wanted to bring in municipal data and wanted to bring in open source data so that they can start to figure things out around population health overall. They couldn't get it off the ground because there wasn't enough technology at the time to create that big, massive data exchange and manage it without having to build an army of people at the end of the day. Snowflake has actually changed that paradigm and puts all this in an automated fashion. And I haven't seen the paper myself, but I hear the province of Alberta is actually going to use Snowflake to bring that project back from 2017 and actually run it all on Snowflake. So here's, at the provincial level, I'm looking at public health data, I'm looking at hospital data, I'm looking at social media data, I'm looking at open source data, municipal data, bringing all that in and trying to help use that information to guide the province on what they need to do next, all within a really safe context, but all within an ecosystem that is protected and gives every player the role-based access that they're allowed to have. So really, really different paradigm. We talked about monetizing data a little bit. At the end of the day, this is very much an American term, but for us here in Canada, our health data is monetized every day, right? Physicians are transaction-based, hospitals are transactions-based, right? Our communities are transactions-based. We trade data for money all the time. We don't always want to admit it, but the more we admit it, the more we can build that reality. Access, big part of this. One of the things I really like about this platform is there's never any copying of data, right? That's always one of the big issues with data warehouse projects, is you're going to end up with multiple versions of the data somewhere, right? In this, there's never more than the original copy. So, and I'm not super technical enough to know exactly how they do that, but that's what they say, so I'm investigating. But I really like that idea, because there's nothing worse than taking, you could have a petabyte of data, and now to really do something interesting with it, because I can't touch my production system, I got to go build another petabyte. Like, are you crazy? Who has money to do that? So I really like this model here. Access, governance, and action, again, coming back to that ability to let other people use the data. And this is the customer journey. So if your reality is, I need to manage data in a safe and secure way that's compliant with all the legislations that I need to be compliant with, right? This might be a journey you might be interested on. I can say from a Nova Network standpoint, this is one we're investigating and trying to learn more about ourselves so we can bring better solutions to you guys. I link this with the virtual desktop idea, and I think we've got something that really changes the paradigm on how we use our information in a safe and secure way. And that's it. Thank you.